Welcome to the College Football X with your hosts, Jon Nelson and John Wilkerson.
Okay, so the last time we did the College Football X, if you transferred from another school, you sat out for a year.
Yeah.
If you got paid under the table by a booster, you got a bowl ban maybe, or maybe a slap on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
My, how things have changed in the 4 years since we did the College Football X. But you know what, John?
What?
It's back.
It is back. It is back. We are back. We are Xing out again, all over, and none of this surprises me when it comes to any of the rules of engagement off the field, and it shouldn't surprise you about the rules of engagement on the field. Stuff that we've been talking about for a very long time about teams coming up and biting you in the you-know-what. That still happens, and it's fun to talk about those kinds of things and to talk about the off-the-beaten-track stories that folks need to pay attention to when it comes to college football on a weekly basis.
Exactly. By the way, he's Jon Nelson. I'm John Wilkerson. Welcome to the College Football X. Let's put a sheet over Georgia Tech and Florida State, shall we? You know, I was going through some of the Twitter or the X.
Twitters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, everything was like memes and stuff that were kind of funny, but the only line I saw that really kind of stood out to me and made me chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I forget what the reporter was. It said that Florida State should sue the Republic of Ireland.
Well, there's that, and then there was also the other element where Florida State has truly become the first team ever to finish 17th or be 17th in the ACC. So you got that. So for those of us who are alums, we've got that to look forward to.
Yes.
Plus the idea of maybe leaving the conference finally, if the deed of gift actually does exist outside of a hermetically sealed skiff in the conference office someplace that's only accessible by Catherine Zeta-Jones when she did the movie and she was the cat burglar, and you have all of the infrared technology and she comes zooming down from the ceiling on what do they call those silly things? Hydraulics or whatever,
hydraulics.
Yeah, well, it's just whatever. But yeah, so if all of the stuff exists, then whatever. But yeah, so we've been catching flack all week, understandably so, and we didn't deserve to win. So that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
Yeah, Jon Nelson, the resident FSU alum in the group. But they still have a shot at a national championship. They're not dead yet. Just for the BCS era, they're DOA.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not the BCS era anymore. This is kind of like what college basketball is. And as I said on the review, this is like if Georgia Tech defeated UConn in the Maui Classic. It kind of has the same effect. And that's what college football fans are going to have to get used to. It's not a death sentence when you lose the first game of the season.
Yeah, whatever.
But how many people are jumping off the FSU bandwagon? The resident alum has.
Me, off. I'm
raised
off.
his hand.
Off. Absolutely,
right.
raised my hand immediately.
All right. Well, let's talk about jumping on bandwagon, shall we?
I think we should.
And I'm going to throw out some schools, John, and you tell me if you would jump on the bandwagon and give me a brief reason why or why not. I'm going to start with LSU.
Yeah, no, because Brian Kelly will find a way to screw things up at the most opportune time where they could take advantage of a situation and they won't.
While we're on the subject, Georgia Tech.
I think they will surprise. I think you can hop on their bandwagon, but I think that they'll still, they might be an 8-win team. So they will acquit themselves well, but well and deep into any kind of a playoff structure are two different things.
Yeah, their schedule scares me though, but I think they're a much better football team than they were last year. Very physical.
Absolutely.
Staying in the ACC, Virginia Tech.
Hokey, Polytech, Virginia. I think that they might be a little better than Georgia Tech, but not, leaps and bounds. So, and I don't think that they'll be making those deep runs as well into the new postseason tournament as you and I know it.
Yeah, they had their first winning season in years last year. And to me, they're getting back to the basics. They found an offensive identity, back to the basics on defense. So I think this is a team that stock is rising in the ACC. They're kind of like Washington is for me in the Big Ten.
Mhm.
They're it's a crapshoot. They could be double-digit wins, or they could have a mediocre year. It just things have to fall into place.
Yeah, to answer your question about Virginia Tech, in the way the hell too early bowl projections put out by some, Virginia Tech, LSU, Gator Bowl.
Oh, I'd pay to see that.
I would not.
Oh, come on, two
Not happening. I will watch it on.
tough
I will watch
physical
it on
teams.
television from the Casa on Jan 2,
Yeah.
and that'll be about it.
I know my mom, an LSU alum, would be very upset with me wearing burnt orange and maroon, but I kind of believe in Virginia Tech right now.
Yikes. So, and Northwestern, by the way, and Georgia Tech in the pinstripe. Is what
Ugh.
yes.
Well, maybe 5 people will show up in New York to see that one. How
And
about Arizona as a bandwagon?
mm, I think another season of doing well. I think that they may finish, man, they're projected to be in the Vegas against Kentucky, if that tells you anything.
That'd be a good basketball game.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great basketball game. Arizona, once again, the hall of getting better, not the
Yeah.
hall of very good. But I think they'll be an entertaining watch. I think that they'll be putting up a lot of big numbers on purpose. So the hall of getting better for me for Arizona. So if you're into stocks that are climbing, I would say Arizona.
Yeah, if Brent Brennan can win consistently at San Jose State, you should be able to do that in Tucson. All right. Nebraska.
Oh, give me a break. The answer to that is that'd be a big old heck no there, Charlie. Even though they're listed in projections as going to the Citrus to play, the side of the helmet says ATM. That's what they're looking at right now. Nebraska and Texas A&M. I am intrigued with Nebraska, with how Dylan Raiola responds to being the starting quarterback as a legacy on that campus. That to me is the number one underlying story of the whole thing. How does he respond to being a quarterback, and the level of patience that Matt Rule would have with Dylan Raiola? That to me is the number one storyline coming into this season. I think possibly better as a Nebraska club, but I don't think, oh my God, I've got to sell everything and dive on the bandwagon. No, I like I said, quarterback to me is the number one storyline there this year.
Yeah, quarterback to me too. And they got to show me something. I mean,
That's
yeah,
Missouri. That's a state over. What are you doing?
the stenciled ends were great in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, but now they've changed conferences, and they've had a revolving door of coaches. Let's see. Let's see what Matt Rule can do in his second year. Finally, Ole Miss.
I think Ole Miss is consistently entertaining as a team, but I think that what saves them now is the idea of the SEC wiping the divisions off the board. I think that saves them, but at the same time, you've grouped in Texas as a part of this now, and what you thought you might be as Ole Miss, now you're having to fight what's going on in Austin as a part of your placement. Projections have them at number 9, the number 9 seed, going into the tournament, playing Oregon. So you're 8-9 projected as Oregon and Ole Miss in Eugene in round 1. So thanks for dropping by. Take the over, and Lane Kiffin will go down swinging. But I think that once again, Paula very good. You'll get in. I think you'll get into the postseason playoff. But if this lays out the way that we think, that you're right in the middle of the seeds and you've got to take a roadie, especially to Eugene and Autzen Stadium, big test for you. I think that you will have made great strides to get into said tournament, but one and done once you get in.
To me, it's the best Ole Miss team in my lifetime, and I'm 57 years old. But I want to see how Lane Kiffin does with a team that has high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
He ran to that Southern Cal, and well, it really didn't work out well for him now, did it? That's
No.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one team that I'm jumping on the bandwagon for, and I've actually been there, and it's a great small school for atmosphere for college football games. Montana State.
Yes, that was a fun one this past week. Just when you thought we would be saving our discussions of FBS v FCS, you lay that out, then guess what? We get to have that discussion after week 0 because of what happened in a comeback for the ages for the MSU Bobcats going up against New Mexico on the road. I don't know how much of a paycheck game it was, but great to see. You know me, I like chaos. I am hashtag Team Chaos every single week. So give that to me all the time. And when you can have an FCS team that is highly regarded, don't get me wrong, go on the road, be down 17-0 early, come back for the win, you got to check in on them and hop on the bandwagon.
And who do we have coming up?
The voice of at MSU Bobcats themselves, Keaton Gillogly. Keaton's going to join us and talk about what life is like in the Big Sky, what life is like in FCS, and getting Keaton. Literally, when the game was over, I'm sitting there and I'm DMing Keaton, trying to get him on the show and figure out what's going on and when we can tape things. But yeah, Keaton Gillogly, the play-by-play voice of your Montana State University Bobcats, who got to call an FCS team knock off an FBS team in week 0.
And we'll hear from Keaton, and a little later from William Woods College as well.
Yeah, 5 teams in college football are starting this year. And part of our mission this year here on the X is to catch up with each one of them. And so we're starting with one of the teams that's got one of the earliest kickoffs, and it is the Owls of William Woods University. And actually.
Who?
Yes, thank you. You know exactly where that school is based.
Yep. Fulton, Missouri.
Fulton, Missouri.
How about St. Louis?
And so we have a 4-on-1 odd man rush to beat the ages. We catch up with the athletic director, the assistant athletic director, the head coach, and the director of communications for the school. They all wanted to come in and talk about what's going on at the Woods as they get ready for the Billy Bowl, their first football game ever this week. William Woods and William Penn. And we catch up with everybody at WWU and find out what's going on with the Owls after we catch up with Keith.
Which begs the question, what about William and Mary? Toss the break, John.
I'm tossing the break. We'll be back with our buddy Keaton Gillogly, and we find out what's going on at MSU. Then we find out what's going on at the Woods. Stick with us here on the X. We'll be right back. Promise.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the X, and we had to track this guy down because last weekend he was kind of busy, and hopefully his vocal cords have recovered after one of the big results from the weekend. Keaton Gillogly, the play-by-play voice of the MSU Bobcats. Have you recovered, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to go. That was week 0. Talk to me again once we get into crossover season. Now, if your vocal cords as a play-by-play guy are wrecked after a game, that means you're not using your voice right. So, no, I'm ready to rock.
Cool. Why do folks continue to, I don't want to say disrespect, but I may say disrespect, and I may spell it out like Stone Cold Steve Austin did in the one promo. But why do folks overlook FCS teams most of the time when it comes to these FBS, FCS matchups where all of a sudden there's a surprise? It's like, oh, the FCS team won. And it's like, if you look, why do folks still overlook FCSs, you think?
I don't know. I mean, there's not many people within a 1,000-mile radius that are overlooking that out here in Montana. And, I guess I'd be curious. It depends on how you define overlooking it. I mean, Montana State ended up as like a 13.5-point betting favorite. They opened at a 4-point favorite on the road at New Mexico, and people just hammered that side. Now, New Mexico covered as the underdog, but ultimately there were a lot of people that did think Montana State was going to win this game, and in some ways it was quite a surprise with the way New Mexico came out. And I don't think it was too much of a surprise to Bobcat fans. They kind of figured, and they listened to Coach Vegan, who was talking about how this is going to be a team in New Mexico that was going to come out with a renewed sense of belief. And I think they did that. They played hard. That sideline was energized. They really, they were playing tough. And, they made a few mistakes at the end of the game that helped leave a crack of a door open for Montana State, and the Bobcats made some mistakes early in the game because, it's week 0. That's the way it goes. So, I think it's easy to overlook some of that stuff, but ultimately the top level of the FCS is not that far from some of the lower level FBS stuff, and we saw that play out, and I think a lot of people are excited to see the way some other things play out with South Dakota State at Oklahoma State this weekend, NDSU at Colorado. I think those are the games that you're going to also really see a lot of eyes on.
What does your gut tell you about those two that you just mentioned?
I mean, look, SDSU is one of the great quarterbacks around the country right now, and Mark Gronowski. They're going to have a shot to make some noise against Oklahoma State. NDSU is going to be a team that, there's some similarities between that NDSU Colorado game and the Montana State New Mexico game, right? Where NDSU and Montana State know who they are. They've got senior leadership at quarterbacks. Yes, NDSU has a new head coach, but he's a guy who's been there, and he's not going to be drastically changing things there. So, it's one of those interesting, I think, eternal conversations you have across sports where you have a team that has more talent and has more skill, but they haven't played together much. They haven't really come together. They haven't really been through the gauntlet yet. They're still kind of figuring out how to trust each other, because that's just going to happen when you have a lot of new guys. While you have a team that maybe doesn't have as much talent on paper, they don't have as many scholarships when you look at a Montana State and NDSU, but Bobcats have 23 seniors. So, is it the experience or the talent that's going to kind of come through? And it's one of those things that plays out a little bit different every time. So, even Colorado's got some of the most amount of transfers again this year. So they're still figuring themselves out. NDSU knows who they are. Cam Miller's a star quarterback who's won a national championship. They know what to do and how to get the most out of themselves. So, those are some of the things I think that are really interesting storylines as we get into the first week of this college football season.
So what were the expectations this season up there at Montana State outside of the schedule in and of itself where you're away and playing FBS opponents? What were the expectations this season up there?
Yeah, there's 3 expectations every year, and they've got it written out and painted on the wall in the locker room. And it's to own the state, which means beating Montana. That's first. It's to win the Big Sky and earn a conference championship, and it's to win a national championship. And they have enough talent, and they have enough skill, they have enough experience, and they've got good enough coaching to do all 3 of those. So that's really what it comes down to. And, last year, 8-4, a lot of close losses. They lost in just the most heartbreaking of fashions with a blocked PAT in overtime against NDSU in the second round last year. And that hurt, that stung. The guys are thinking about that. And one of the things that a lot of these seniors and even underclassmen have talked about was the pain and the anguish of the senior class from last year after that loss, because they had a chance to do something really special and they came up, 1 point shy. So yeah, the expectations are beat Montana, win the Big Sky, go win a national championship, and we'll see how many of those 3 come out this year.
For someone who has never seen Big Sky football, and this is kind of one of the reasons that we catch up with folks like you on a weekly basis to kind of introduce the sport to the rest of the country for those that might just be in their, conference bubble and they know what's immediately attached to them. For someone who's never been to the Big Sky, might see a playoff game, in the postseason as they're waiting for their own FBS bowl game. Describe Big Sky football and describe what football means up there to Montana State specifically for someone who just might watch it on television buzzing past with a remote control.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and there's honestly a lot of bullet points to that answer in a good way. I think in a lot of ways, the Big Sky, as a conference, and particularly in football, is still a very traditional college football conference. In that, you still have a lot of 3, 4, 5 year guys that stay at the same schools. There's a lot of transfers. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of development at these schools, which is a lot of fun to watch. There are still a lot of the charter members of the Big Sky Conference, which began in the early 1960s. It's also included Boise State and Nevada and some others. But Montana State's a charter member, Montana's a charter member, Idaho State's a charter member. You've got a lot of the charter members still in this conference. You have a lot of the actual traditional state schools that are squaring off against each other, right? Idaho State, Montana State. So you've got a lot of the traditional kind of state schools, which means people really care, right? This is the biggest university in the state. Montana has one of the great, programs in the state. Every game Montana State does, every game that happens in Missoula and in Bozeman, that's the biggest sporting event in a 700-mile radius. I mean, you have to go down to Salt Lake City for anything bigger, and that's a 6.5-hour drive. Going further north is Colorado. Going east is the Dakotas. Going west, you can get to Spokane. But before that, you have to go all the way to Seattle, and that's a 12-hour drive. So these are the biggest games in the biggest area. Both Montana State and Montana are built on Montana kids. 8 of the 23 seniors for Montana State this year are from the state of Montana. A big collection of these seniors have been here for their entire season. So, this is a school, this is a university, this is a program where it is filled with people who grew up watching Montana State, rooting for the Bobcats, and now they're a part of that. And then once they're done, they continue to come back. And there's a lot of people that truly care, and this is everything. And, and then, when you look at the pro sports around here, it's just, there's some minor league baseball, but that's it. And as a result, everybody kind of has a random collection of who they're going to root for based on who was winning when they were 8 years old, So this is it. This is everything. This is really the highest level in a really big radius. And this is what people shoot for. This is their goal, to be here, to win football games, and to be at the Big Sky in the FCS. It's just the perfect kind of place where everybody has similar resources. Nobody's really outspending anybody too much. And it's very, very balanced.
Keaton Gillogly, the play-by-play voice of the MSU Bobcats, dropping by here on the X to break things down for one of the big wins that happened in week 0. How much of an adjustment was it for you when you accepted the job to be on the call for MSU? How much of an adjustment was it for you to understand what's going on up there?
Not too much of an adjustment, I don't think. I think that's just a part of the job. Whether you become the voice of Montana State or, you become the voice of the Denver Broncos, the Chicago Bears, you got to go back and you got to learn the history. You got to go and you have to understand the history. You have to talk to the fan base. I grew up in Chicago, so the only thing I wouldn't have to really catch up on is any Chicago sports. But for the most part, you really need to speak to the people who show up to the radio shows. Go walk around the tailgate that hour and a half before the game and have some conversations and just get a sense of what people care about, who they care about, what their traditions in the tailgate are, their language, their verbiage, the star players in program history, the big moments, the painful moments, the games that they could have won but did not. All of those things kind of continue to come together and build upon themselves year over year. So not too much of an adjustment. It's been a lot of fun, I think, and just really rewarding because outside of some games I've done on the Big Ten Network, I mean, these are some of the biggest games I've done in my career with the most amount of people listening and the most amount of passion. So, even if somebody in Maine, New Hampshire, New York City isn't putting this on their radar, I know a lot of people who are listening put this on their radar. It's a really intelligent fan base, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really a privilege to be the guy who's the one who's letting somebody know who's sitting on their back porch looking at the mountains or, riding in their combine listening to this game because they've got work to do, but they still want to know what the Bobcats are doing. And, I take that privilege very heavily.
All right, I know I'm going to ask about Utah Tech coming up in just a little bit because that's next on the list for Montana State. You mentioned tailgates. Let me go down this road. When you go walking through the tailgate, what are some of the things that are cooking in the grills and some things that might be just indigenous to an MSU tailgate that the rest of us may not experience on a weekly basis? Or is it normal? I mean,
it's relatively pretty normal. There's a lot of people will have a lot of little like campfires too, bonfires, which is helpful in the winter.
Yeah.
I think it's punchkis is a like a kind of like a potato like slider type thing with like this really warm like gravy meat beef stuff in the middle of it. It comes from Butte. Tommy Malot's folks will bring it to some of the parent tailgates. That one's really, really good. It was something that was kind of developed by a lot of the Irish miners in the city of Butte. So that's a really good one on a cold morning, getting ready for football when you're going to have a lot of libations that need a sponge in your belly.
Yeah.
So that one's really good. But people used to be able to just bring their own beverages into the stadium, but that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, still they were able to do that. There was also, people are allowed to leave at halftime and then come back in. So people will head out, go heat up a little bit by wherever they are in their tailgate, and then come back in for the start of the third quarter. They blow a big siren when there's about 5 minutes before. So yeah, we got a lot of that stuff. And then the biggest tradition right now is the national champion rodeo team that has the horses that lead the team out. So the band and the cheerleaders and the dance team, they're all lined up on the hash marks. They've got the pyrotechnics set up in the end zone. And then they've got, 6 members of the team or 7 members of the team that hold each different letter of Bobcats while they ride out, and then the team comes out behind them. So, there's a lot of really good, unique traditions here. And people in Bozeman, they don't, and Montana, they don't really care what other people think. This is theirs. This is what they do. This is their Saturday. And regardless of if other people are paying attention or not, they're going to be coming with the same juice every week.
And so next up, you're at Utah Tech. It's a trip to St. George, Utah. I know that it's early in the week as you and I are talking, but what are the early returns about this first road test for Montana State?
It's going to be an interesting one, similar to the New Mexico trip. It's going to be a new head coach, new quarterbacks, new kind of system. Montana State won pretty easily last year. They won 63-20 at home. They ended up relieving Paul Peterson of his duties at the head coaching position. They brought in the 16-year defensive coordinator from Stanford, Lance Anderson. So they brought in a ton of FBS transfers. They lost their starting quarterback from a year to transfer. They lost 2 of their top defenders to transfer as well. They did bring in a couple of interesting guys at the quarterback position. So they brought in the Iowa transfer, Deacon Hill, who came in and was playing a lot for Cade McNamara last season on their way to that Big Ten West championship. They also brought in a Syracuse transfer, Luke McPhail. He was one of the top recruits out of Massachusetts 2 or 3 years ago, but he only got into 1 game at Syracuse. So they have 2 kind of high-level guys out of the FBS who haven't really shown a lot of success at the elite FBS level. But, down here, we'll see how that comes along. And then they've got another quarterback who's a local kid who had big numbers, Reggie Graff. So, we're not really sure what we're going to see. You can go back and watch a lot of Stanford tape to try to figure out their defense, but we don't really know what this offense is going to do and what it's going to look like. So, once again, for Montana State, it's going to be a lot of focus on themselves. What do they do well? And then it's really a heavy reliance on the coaching staff to be able to coach on the fly, read on the fly. And you're basically breaking down tape from drive to drive to try to figure out what you think they're going to do so that you can continue to recognize some of their packages. So it's going to be a tough one, but this is once again another team with a new coach, a lot of new players. And so they're going to kind of be figuring themselves out while the Bobcats really know who they are right now.
All right, cut the promo for me. How can folks listen all season long to you and your dulcet tones as you take MSU through a season? How do they follow you on social media? Anything else relevant? Go ahead and hit it.
On X Twitter, I'm at Gillogly, my last name, Gillogly. Same thing on TikTok. We put a lot of stuff up there. And then on Instagram, it's at Gil_OH_Glee. It's the phonetic spelling of my last name. So you can find some things there. Also on the Montana State Athletics YouTube page, we have a behind the mic cam. So you can look into the booth while myself, Leo Davis, and our engineer Dylan McPhail are up there. That's got the whole program broadcast on that. We've got a statewide radio network for the people in the state of Montana, and I post that on the social media pages as much as I can. And then the Varsity Network app is the other good way to be able to tune in for the radio broadcast. We got a podcast, Bobcat Insider Podcast. You can find that anywhere you want it. And then we also do our weekly show with Brent Vegan players. You can find that on the Varsity Network app and the Montana State Athletics YouTube page as well. So we pump a lot of content over here. And if you ever want to know anything about Montana State football, I promise you can find it.
Fantastic. Keaton, Thanks for answering the siren call, for letting everybody know what happened last week with Montana State and about the program. That's what we like to do. We like to educate everybody and bring everybody just a little bit closer. Thanks for dropping by on the X. Safe travels. We'll be keeping an eye on you this season up there at MSU. Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.
All right, we're going to go to break. We'll come back and we'll find out about one of the new programs that is going on this season here starting in 2024. The X continues after this. Welcome back to the X, and as part of our journeys this year, we have decided to check in on each of the 5 new college football programs around the country, and the first one stepping up to the plate is our folks in the Woods, with the Owls of William Woods in Fulton, Missouri, and we got a full house. I mean, it is a 4-on-1 odd man rush that I don't know if I can defend all 4 of you at the same time. So here we go. It is John Rauschkolb, Grand Exalted Poobah of Information, the sports information director. And how big is the business card, John?
It's a little tiny dot.
Okay.
It's one of those. I get one of those dots because I can put all of the information on there and change it as I need to.
Sweet, absolutely. AD Steve Wilson, head coach Julian Mendez, and Casey's title. When I was looking up Casey's title, yes, Assistant Athletic Director for Athletic Enrollment and Media Production, Casey Weeder. So it is a 4-on-1. Gentlemen, thanks for dropping by the X to educate all of us on what's going on there in the Woods.
Forward to it.
Appreciate you.
Excited.
All right, so let me start with Steve, and ask about the process. And now that you are, as we are talking, only a couple days away from getting everything started, does it seem like it was however long ago it was when you started this process to get the college football program up and running, or does it seem like it was yesterday and you're like, oh, you know what, I've got a game in a couple of days?
It's both. It feels like an entire lifetime ago that in December of 2022, I was interviewing for the job here as the director of athletics, and the question came up on the interview. Well, what would you think of football? By the other side of that coin, feels like it was yesterday, and it feels like it's still in some stages. It still feels like it's tomorrow. We're still working on that facility. We are, I wouldn't say we're behind on the facility, but every facility project is going to have challenges that we've met. But we are still getting that thing it'll look different on the first home game on September 14th than it looks today.
Then you bring in Julian Mendez. Coach, you've got a history in Texas high school football at Odessa. You know what football means to communities, and you're embracing this challenge out of the blocks. Has embracing this challenge to start something from absolute zero, has it been what you had anticipated? Have there been curves on the mountain road? What's it been like for you?
I don't know if you can fully, diagram or fully put together what you're going to expect from starting it from brand new. I think you can have a little bit of idea of what it's going to be like, and you're definitely going to get some curveballs because you start thinking about everything that you need to purchase, to order, to make sure you have to run a program. Day one, stepping on campus, there wasn't a shirt that said William Woods football, and so to think about that same standpoint, like what Steve said about sometimes it feels like it was a long time ago, and sometimes it just feels like it was a snap of a finger. And so, yeah, there were a little bit of dips and hurdles to get around, but the amount of support that we do have, from the top of our president, Dr. Moreland, all the way through our executive board and working through and just campus has been amazing. I don't think I would want to do this anywhere else because you have that support.
John, for those that aren't familiar with the process and how William Woods got to where it is today with its athletics and everything else going on, for those that don't know the history lesson, what's the history lesson to get us to where we are today?
So William was founded in 1870 as an all-women's school. We started intercollegiate athletics in 1974 with 3 teams. Our volleyball, women's basketball, and softball teams are actually celebrating their 50th year of competition this year. And we recently became co-ed only in the late 90s. So for us to bring such a big sport, big change to the culture of campus has been huge. Again, a lot of things happen in the background to make that happen. Steve and as well Dr. Moreland and Dr. Ted Blashek have been absolutely instrumental in doing that. But we've made sure to, as we've launched the program, we've launched it with intentionality. One of the things that we did very right was to launch flag football alongside football. One of the first sort of public event that we held on the field was a flag football clinic with Dr. Jen Welter, the first woman to coach in the NFL. She came and taught both boys and girls some of the basics of flag football and how they could use that as a platform to embrace their, and to really kind of become better citizens. And every decision that we made on the field, from making the soccer lines orange, since it started as a women's soccer field. Again, we've tried to, keep that link to our heritage, but realize that as we, move past our 154th year, we're growing. We're changing a lot of things on campus, and we're becoming just kind of a real force to be reckoned with in mid-Missouri.
Casey, what's the vibe been like on campus from your perspective? What's it been like to see the boost in enrollment? From what I understand, it's like you got more folks coming onto campus that want to be a part of what's going on there academically than have been in recent years. What's that boost been like? What's the energy been like there on campus?
I think it's been tremendous. I mean, you can look back to January when our 22 guys showed up to campus. And I would say our men's basketball program got to see how excited our football players can get based off the environment that we had in our arena. We're 11-1 in men's basketball here in Anderson Arena this year, and a large part of that is because our football players jumped right into the environment. They're very much involved already in the fraternity scene here on campus. I think our students are super excited about that first game on Thursday, but also that first home game coming up here in a couple weeks. We're going to have an environment that is very different than most NAIA institutions, and that there's not 8 lanes of track between where our students are going to be able to watch a game and where the football game is going to be going on. Our students are going to be lined up right behind the goalpost. They're going to be right into the mix, and our community is also going to be right there. Our stands are perfect for viewing. And for all of us on this call, we've been in the NAI for a long time. We've seen really successful football, and Steve will back me up on this. We didn't add football just to increase enrollment. We want to be competitive. I mean, Steve was at Kansas Wesleyan when they made it to semifinals. Me and Julian were at Ottawa University when they went to 6 straight playoffs and 4 conference titles. And John got to be a part of Avila's rebuild. So I'm excited to put a product out there Thursday that I think we're all super proud of. And these guys have worked really hard, and they bought into something that really didn't exist, a year ago. And I think we're going to do some really special things. And I think the campus is excited to see how we roll it out Thursday night.
Steve, when you roll something out like this and you're trying to bring someone into the fold, it's like, okay, we want you to be a part of this. Not everyone is built to be a part of a startup. I mean, you've got to have a certain amount of faith. You've got to have a certain amount of trust in the individuals around you. You've got to have a certain amount of vision when it comes to the future. What's it been like assembling the cast to get ready for this next step, and at the same time bring in all of these different pieces and have everyone on the same page, hopping in 2 years, which seems like yesterday, everybody on the same page? What's it been like to assemble all these puzzle pieces?
It's been a lot of fun. And to tell you the truth, in terms of new builds and things like that, football was just kind of the last thing that I needed to do. In terms of launching programs, I've since 2018, our provost, Dr. Blashak, likes to call me a mad scientist. That's his word for me. since 2018, I've been part of 3 institutions that have now launched 39 programs in 6 years. One of them was a whole campus build in Arizona. So adding programs, evolving, growing, that's not something that I'm new to, but I'll tell you, in the football program, there was a little more intentionality, a little more in depth that needed to go into it. One, we needed to find the right guy who could go out and sell himself, go out and sell our vision, go out and recruit kids to this campus with, pointing to what was a grass soccer field with a grass berm for seating and no press box, and that's where we're going to put this facility that we're going to build. That's where we're going to put this, new turf field. That's where we're going to put these new locker rooms. We found the right guy to do that. We found a guy who knows how to win, a guy who knows how to sell vision, a guy who knows how to assemble one heck of a staff. I mean, you look at our coordinators and the background that they come from. I challenge any school to have the background that our coordinators have, the schools that they came from, and for them to have the faith in us to do what we're going to do. It's in this particular case, this was fun because we didn't have to sell it up the chain. In terms of our leadership, our president, our provost, they're the ones who sat with us in those weekly meetings. They're the ones who wanted to know, okay, the turf, the lines, the colors, they wanted to know all this stuff, and they wanted to be a part of it. And, let us make the decisions. Let us go have some fun, go have a little stress too. And that's good on all of us. But never for a second have we felt like there wasn't support from the top down. And I've told our president on at least a couple of occasions, not every AD, not every coach, not everyone gets to do what we're doing right now. Not everyone gets to have a guy who walks onto a field like President Moreland did, and he's just as excited as we are. Like that just doesn't happen everywhere in the country. And we're incredibly blessed. And every single one of us, God willing, we all get to our 80s and 90s. We're going to look back on this thing and say, man, what a life. Like this was, these were memories we're going to bottle up. 2024 has been so special.
Julian, let me ask you this. When you assemble a roster, I mean, the coaches, the coaches, you got that ingrained. It's like, I need this kind of an individual. I know who I can call. The list is probably short to bring in the staff that you want. When it comes to the player, because of there only being a grass berm, and hey, here's where this is going to be, where this is going to be. It's not where it is, but where this is going to be. I know that at the same time, on the field and off, you're looking for a specific kind of player that can embody what you're looking for there at the Woods going forward. What was the recruiting process like for you to try to bring in the right student athlete as a part of this too? Because, they always say no second chance to make a first impression. You've got to hit the ground. You've got to look right. You've got to feel right. Everything's got to be the aura has to be right when the Woods come out there on the field. What was the recruiting process like for you?
And I think Jon utilized this word, but it was extremely intentional with how we had to talk about our recruiting. And we just try to be transparent. I'm going to be transparent in the way that I recruit anyways, because I just believe that's the only way to do it. But we were letting them know that this wasn't going to be easy. You had to understand that, hey, there are those things hey, this isn't that process to think that you're stepping into something that's already built, stepping into a program that already has that culture. You're stepping into something that, just like Steve said, and hopefully in 10 years, these kids are able to look back and say, we did this. Wherever the program is in 10 years, it's because of what this group embodied and what this group was able to take on, from being able to understand, hey, not all of our facility is finished, but we know what we have to do, and we know that August 29th at 7 p.m. we got to lace it up and go show who we are. And I think that was something that early on you could see in the recruiting process that some student athletes embodied and loved, and some student athletes didn't, and we're not always going to be the right fit for everybody, but that's where it's being that extremely transparent with the recruiting, is finding out who they are. And I told those guys every practice, I essentially tell them the guys that are in this group right here are the guys who are supposed to be here. And by that is we hear a lot of things about doing those things, and it's exciting to have those guys here because they want to be here and they're excited about what we have. They're excited about the field. They're excited to be able to see the locker room being finished and seeing all of our facilities being done. Like, they're excited for that stuff, and that's the whole reason why they're here. We start feeling like we got the right guys, which is exciting. And then we look from game plan aspect, is we got the right guys for that too. So that's the fun part.
Jon, when it comes to putting all of this together, what do you think that is the most surprising element, where those on this side of the equation, not part of assembling what is going on there at the Woods, but for those of us on the outside, what do you think would be the most surprising thing that those of us on the outside would learn about what's going on? Is there something that would kind of fly below the radar, that's underappreciated, that's not known? What would be the most surprising thing to you in this build that folks would sit there and go, man, I didn't know that was a part of this whole process?
I think the biggest thing is realizing just how much goes into planning all of the electrical infrastructure. Because, again, we're bringing this to bear. We've started from, we had essentially a complete tear down and rebuild of our facility. It had an older scoreboard. It had kind of an older Bermuda grass field. When we kind of tear that down, take it all the way down to the dirt, we've been partnered with Mammoth, who's been an amazing partner to kind of get everything built, and then just all of the fine tuning of all the little things where we have to run electrical to the scoreboards, the play clocks, the auxiliary scoreboard, to the press boxes that we have, all of the little things that go into delivering that in-venue and broadcast experience. We're looking to, I said we're going to, kind of be a big player in mid-Missouri. We've got plans to do 3 camera angles for all of our broadcasts from game one at home. We've got a instant replay set up. Heart of America has authorized use of instant replay and official reviews. We've had to account for how that's going to be built. We've had to kind of account for, okay, so we play soccer on this field as well as football. How do we kind of store the soccer goals off to the sidelines safely? How do we, keep everybody on the field safe? And just, all of the little touches that go into making a venue, from scratch, essentially. We had it, like I said, we had a beautiful soccer field and it was perfectly fine. But, going from that to something that's able to support, not only 3 sports in fall, because we'll be playing football, women's soccer, and men's soccer. Then we play flag football and men's lacrosse in the spring. Again, with practices across those. Just it's amazing how many little things and how many crazy meetings that you have to have with electrical vendors and your network vendors and all those things.
All right, Casey, let me ask you this. We all have our to-do lists. And I mean, it could be written on a legal pad. It's okay. I've got my to-do list here. It's handwritten. I know where it is. It could be on a Google, it could be on a Google Drive, a Google Doc that everybody shares, and you write something in it, you file it, you ship it away. Could be on one of those old bank calendar kind of deals, like we had, when you go into a bank and the guy that gives you the savings account, he's got the big calendar under the glass and he writes things there. Or it could be on one of those calendars that's magnetized to the fridge. You have an idea at 2:00 in the morning, you write it down, you put everything away, and you realize that you can't read your own handwriting. Or it's on one of those big 6x8 big whiteboards that's off camera as we're talking, and there's a bunch of lines and arrows and different colors and things. Where is the Owls to-do list And what do you think the next thing that can be crossed off of that to-do list is to get ready for game one and then home game one?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I've got a whiteboard behind me with some things on it. The other thing that me and Steve do a lot of is we do play a little bit of golf from time to time. So in the golf cart, we talk a lot, and then also we made a few trips to nationals. We went and saw our tennis team in Mobile, Alabama. That was about 12 hours in the car down there and back. So any ideas that we've had, a lot of those have come from our discussions. From things we've written down. We've got a Google Doc that runs through our Microsoft Teams that Coach Mendez, John, and Steve all have access to, that we write things down. I think the thing that we could check off is that our football team is stepping on a bus here in like a day and a half. I mean, that's huge, and we're stepping on there with more than 22 guys. I mean, we're going there with a really solid squad, and I'm excited for that. We're packing a large SUV with about 6 of us from our office. And we're leaving here 9-10 in the morning and heading up to Oskaloosa, and we're going to cover this team the way they should be covered. And I'm excited for us to all get there because we have guys, individuals on our staff that have never seen NAI football. I forget that sometimes, is that, for individuals that have been at Woods for a long time, they've never seen what NAI football is, the level of play, the quality of the players, the atmosphere that's created on Thursday night. I think that's going to be fantastic to see. Our president's going to be part of the coin toss during that whole deal. And credit to William Penn. They've included us in the entire process. They've been really good at understanding that this is a commemorative moment for us, and we want to document as much as possible. And they've been really good at allowing us to bring as many people as we need to support that. But there will be a lot of things packed into an SUV as far as cameras and just different equipment that we're going to need to be able to cover this correctly. But yeah, checking that's the first thing, is we have football players stepping on a bus in a day and a half to head up and play for the first time ever in Woods history.
Battle of the Williams, William Woods and William Penn coming up around the corner in the first annual Billy Bowl. Very, very cool there. One last round with each one of you before I let you get back to work, because you guys are kind of busy and getting ready for game preps. Steve, what have you learned about yourself as an athletic director that you might not have known about yourself in getting all of this together to the point to where you're about ready to kick off a football program?
I wouldn't say that it's necessarily something I didn't know about myself, but it's something that reinforced, and that is that I am extremely impatient in terms of wanting things to be done, and the project management of a facility for someone like me is not going to be easy, because there's going to be bumps. There's going to be moments when I think this could have been done eons ago, and working with an incredible facility staff. Our director of facilities, Mike Dillon, is an absolute saint in terms of the things that we've thrown at him and the things that he's able to come up with solutions on it. If anybody's a mad scientist, it's that guy. So patience is something my wife tries to teach me every day of the week, and it doesn't work. So I'm going to remain impatient. I do have to add, though, that on those road trips with Casey, I make Casey drive when it's either raining or dark. And I drive when it's sunny out and perfect, so that I can look mad at everything that he says to me, because I'm so intently concentrating on the road. I also learned that I need people like Casey, like John, like Coach Mendez, like our good friend, Dr. Andy Otto, who's our VP for enrollment management. I need people that I can bounce stuff off of. And I need to not be so, like, I've learned that my pride's gotten in the way in the past, and I've tried to internalize things, tried to do it all myself. And you just, one, and something like this, you can't do that. Two, something like this, why would you want to? Like, you've got people that care just as much as you do around you. And I think that's kind of the neat part about this place, is that we can get in a pretty knockdown, drag out argument and disagree. And about 5 minutes later, this group's still just about as tight as it can get.
Coach Mendez, what have you learned about yourself in this process that you didn't know?
Wow. I mean, I think it's, I think I have the patience that maybe Steve needs sometimes. I've kind of always known that about myself. At heart, I'm just a beach kid from Southern California, so that's kind of always been me. That trails into a little bit more of it, but I think I've learned a little bit more that doing enough of these interviews that even though I don't like public speaking as much, I sell myself a little bit too well sometimes. So that's kind of what I've learned. My wife doesn't like that because then she thinks I'm a little bit egotistical. I just say, dang, I just killed that interview. But yeah, knowing that I'm still a little nervous about those things because I'm an O-lineman, so I've always checked my ego card in the back pocket. So I've learned that even though, which is probably one of my best qualities, is that I don't want things to be about me. Sometimes it has to be from a standpoint of I get all the questions, but I've learned even more that my patience, and I try to be as humble as possible to know that none of this stuff is about me. It's about being able to do this for the kids and know that we are now another opportunity for student athletes to utilize football, to get a degree and to make an impact.
John,
And so, yeah.
Yeah, John, what about you?
Julian touched on something really important there. Kind of what I've really learned about this is the why I do it. The biggest thing for me in this position is making everything about the student athlete experience. I'm kind of in a unique position where my wife is closing in on retirement for her teaching. She lives in Kansas City. I live mostly full-time in Fulton. We've got a 13-year-old daughter that's starting middle school this week. But, when I talked with Steve, found out that they were launching football at the Woods, I was like, okay, I gotta jump in on this. And the thing that I've loved most about this entire process is seeing the reaction on the student athletes' faces when we're doing little things for them, and big things. One of the first things we did was to connect one of our quarterbacks with a local sports magazine, a little preview. And, he was like, thank you very much for doing this. We're putting a lot of effort and thought into the game day experience, the broadcast experience. We're showing kids that, hey, we don't have to have NCAA Division I resources to give you the perception of an NCAA Division I experience. We're finding the little ways to make their game day experience, their on-campus experience with regard to the sports, their regular campus experience, great. And that's been, amazing. It's been so amazing for me to be a part of that and kind of really feel at home away from home.
Casey, what about you?
I think it's just embracing the chaos. I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most, and also being willing to be transparent. There have been several programs across the country, not just NAI level, that have added football in the last few years. And sometimes they can be really secretive about it, and they don't want you to know that they've added it. I feel like our coaching staff, along with Steve, has been upfront and honest, and we've tried to get in as many podcasts, as many opportunities for them to be interviewed. I think for me, as a former NAI football player, and Julian will tell you the same, we were begging, for people to come out and cover us. And I wanted that to be an opportunity for our players, along with our coaches. Obviously, we've made connections with, Victory Sports Network and the NAIF ball. They're huge within the avenue of NAI football. And we want to share this experience with them. And I think that's super important for us. And then also realizing, some things might not go the way you expect it to, but can you make, lemonade out of, if you don't have all the lemons, can you still find a way to make lemonade, right? So I think we've done that. And I think we're going to put a really not just the experience for our players, but I think just in general for our fans for that first home game. And then obviously those that are traveling on Thursday. But obviously, embracing the chaos and being willing to do something unique and different. And I think we've done that.
No doubt about it, gentlemen. Thank you for the incredibly insightful stuff here. It's Steve Wilson, Julian Mendez, John Rauschkolb, Casey Weeder, who are getting ready for the first annual Billy Bowl, which means that the Woods are getting ready to play football in the NAIA. Gentlemen, thanks for hanging out with us here on the X. Good luck. We'll keep an eye on it. And trust me, I'm buying the gear, so we'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thanks so much, John.
Appreciate you.
That's it for this segment. We'll come back and put a bow on the X. It's the OSG Sports Network. We'll be right back after this.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Listen to those bugles from the Texas A&M marching band.
Look at you.
A great military band. Guess what?
What?
They got some golden helmets coming to Kyle Field.
Oh, boy.
Can't wait to see that atmosphere down in the Brazos. Notre Dame and Texas A&M.
Are they going to sell the whole place out? Are they going to get north of 105?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Heck yeah. It's different when the golden helmets.
I've been in that. I've been in that
too.
car. I've been in the new version where they got the triple.
I was in the old version.
Yeah. See, you were in the old.
Still
version.
loud as hell.
Yeah. Not dismissing that, but I was in the new version where the quarterback that felt compelled to run around a lot and sign things and
Johnny
have
football.
Yeah, him. He signed a lot of those footballs. I was in the building for their run, and I was in the building for a different quarterback when they were not very good. So I've been in that building when it's been full. I've been in that building when people have wanted to leave the building quickly. Trust me, it's two different environments. I'm intrigued as to how it's going to look and feel with the Golden Domers heading to hang out with the oil money there in the College Station on the weekend.
All right, what's the over and under that there'll be as many people there as with at the George Strait concert a few months back at
I'm saying
Field.
I'm saying that number is going to be pretty even, Steven. That's what I'm staring at.
That's just as loud, and the Cowboys will be just as hammered on Lone Star.
Oh, you aren't kidding, brother. But seriously, if you've never seen the Texas A&M band at halftime,
oh, it's a thing of beauty.
it is something
Precision.
to behold, and it is one of those. We always talk about bands that you need to see. Texas A&M's band is one. Then you get into the HBCUs that are a part of that as well. But Texas A&M's band, because of how they operate and because of how they do their routines, it is tremendous. So if you ever have the chance to go to a game where the band will play, either at Kyle Field or on the road, if they take the band on the road, go watch the bands. Definitely go watch the bands. Oh, by the way, as you and I are talking, because it's a night game on campus, it is Texas A&M 3. So basically, the juice box purveyors are just throwing a blanket over the whole thing, but they don't care. It's like invest in your own peril, and the total's at 46.5. So there you go.
All right. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing that Notre Dame team in the golden helmets at Kyle Field and how crazy it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of, well, kind of crazy, this whole Deion Sanders thing and his fight with the media.
Yeah.
And his latest quote saying, "I'm not built to hate." And he wants to bar a Denver Post reporter, a columnist, who he doesn't like. And he has a clause that basically says he can pick and choose who comes in for his press conference, which I'm sure was negotiated in good faith.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, John, but I'm really getting tired of the acting boulder.
As someone who, in full disclosure, Deion and I went to school together. So
I think I generally like the guy if I met him.
Yeah.
And I've met several FSU players from that era, and they speak highly of him.
Mm-hmm. So I learned at an early age where Prime was coming from and who Deion is.
Yeah, they're two different personalities.
Right. And so I think a lot of folks conflated both of those personalities and tried to blend them into one individual, which was not the way to go about this. I think and I made this point on the review, I think a lot of this, and you know, the idea that you can talk to whomever you wish, and then you can sit there and the columnists for the Denver Post can come in and sit and not ask questions. It's disappointing that you don't want to address, you know, and I get columnists are there to get clicks and they're there to take up space and all that.
Yeah.
I get it. So I've always
They're
thought
there to stir the pot.
right. And so I've always thought that the best way when someone is there to stir the pot, challenge them on their recipe. You sit there, it's like, okay, this whatever you're making here on the stove, you know, what makes this a dish that folks need to you know, to eat, to go to the restaurant and have? Why should folks be paying attention to this recipe? Challenge those individuals. And the snide, I get it, the clickbait headlines and all that kind of stuff. There are things that should be talked about off the field of what's going on in Boulder, but there's a way to go about it.
Yeah.
And chasing after clickbait to necessitate this kind of response from Dion, that, you know, it rubs me the wrong way. Ask the question the way that you want to ask it, and don't be all slick and snide and cutesy and try to get in the zinger. If you got a problem, write about the problem, because then I think that if you have an honest exchange of ideas, then you'll get the honest response back in return, and then you can have a decent, you know, you can have a decent exchange. But doing all the snide digs isn't going to get you anywhere, and you end up with the situations that you end up with in Boulder.
Yeah, and the act that I'm getting tired of is the media in the Denver and Boulder area. I mean, I think Deion Sanders is a high man of character who I think he's did a great job raising his sons. So I don't understand why he has to be baited like that. I know by the clickbait and everything, I get that, but I just don't understand why that has to be constant. You know, now I don't like the idea of picking and choosing who gets to come in your press conference. I think should be an open forum.
Yeah.
But that's me. I understand in this age of media, when you've got Colorado's probably got 5 or 6 recruiting sites, and everybody wants to get a piece of Coach Sanders and get a comment from him. But come on, don't bait the guy. I mean, to me, the act is just getting old from that end.
You elevate and escalate, and no one wins in that situation when you do stuff like this.
Exactly. What now? The Big Ten Conference.
Never heard of it.
Came out with their tie-breaking scenarios.
Oh, good Lord. How long, how many pages did you have to print? 1, 2, 3. You got like 19 pages there? Good Lord, dude.
Yes. The 2-team tie-breaking scenario, even the 3-team. But you know, this is what just killed me about these scenarios. Head-to-head result, record against common opponents is the next rung, and then record against common opponents with best conference record is the next rung. Cumulative conference winning percentage is the next rung.
I got a headache.
Highest ranking by Sports Source Analytics is the next to last rung. And if all that is still can't be decided,
coin flip.
It's a random draw conducted by Commissioner Tony Petitti or a designee.
So if Tony Petitti doesn't want to do it and he picks somebody to do it, then that person
They grab a hat and put it in there. Put the 2 teams in there, and he picks the winner.
Frozen envelopes. Here we go. So Tony
Petitti
turns into David Stern. I get it.
Turns into David Stern, and this Mr. Chaos would be right up your alley.
Absolutely, it would. It would also give me a headache. You know, give me the 7-team tiebreaker. I'm all for it. And then that gives us more to yell about, and it gives us, you know, a good month's worth of material to talk about. So instead of a coin flip, it's a draw by lot. Okay, so there you go. I understand it. I get it. So can't wait to get there and see how the conference responds to it. And then you end up with a frozen envelope, and what's best for television ends up best for frozen envelope situation and the drawing by lots. I know how this is going to work. I get it. I know. I absolutely know how this is going to work.
And you're going to be watching the Big Ten standings going, I hope he has to draw it out of a hat.
I
I
absolutely am. I sincerely hope that he draws it out of a hat. And then we get to make fun of the whole process. That's the beauty of it all.
And then they're going to wish they went back to divisions.
Yeah, really. Then they'll go back to divisions. They'll absolutely. You'll get Tony Petitti will have some kind of a major press conference, and he'll sit there and go, after review with what happened last season, we want to avoid the chaos of all of the decision and indecision and confusion from the media and everyone inside the conference. So what we've decided to do is we've decided to go back to our conference formats and have a championship game. And you'll get another 5-paragraph essay as to why. But no, I firmly anticipate chaos, and then they'll mysteriously go back to a championship game.
In all of our discussion about Deion Sanders and his battle with the Colorado media, we forgot to mention that they open against North Dakota State.
Oh boy,
the Bison and the Buffaloes.
Okay, yeah, 2 endangered species. I see how this works. Bison and buffaloes. Let me see if I can find the.
When have those 2 mascots ever butted heads?
Hey, in the Plains, brother, I'm sure they have. Let's see. So what's the start time at Folsom Field? Do you know off the top of your head as I'm sitting here in?
Oh, I had it in front of me. It's 8 o'clock Eastern.
Okay, 8 o'clock Eastern.
So it'll be 6 o'clock local time.
Well, I just need 8 o'clock Eastern. So, shoot, what day of the week is it kicking off? Are they? They're
a Thursday night game.
Thursday night game. Okay. Colorado's
prime time. No pun intended on ESPN.
Colorado's at 10 and 60.5. Give me North Dakota State and the under.
Yeah, I like Colorado by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
I think
that's me.
First week out of the blocks. I think this is where you end up with your FCSers biting folks on the butt. I think that
we've already had that.
Hey, the week ain't over yet, brother. So I got North Dakota State. I'll take the 10. I don't know if you get to the 60.5.
You know what it's time for?
College football on a budget.
Man, I didn't even have to pay a voiceover guy for that.
One of those. The Roman candles, the fireworks, the intimidating voice, all that stuff.
College football on a budget.
Okay, so Thursday night games, and depending when you hear this podcast, you may have already forked it over.
Right.
But there are 3 games we can get in for $2.
Okay.
Southeast Louisiana and Tulane.
I would go because it's in New Orleans.
Northwestern State at Tulsa.
Not so much.
I'd go visit family there and head over to Chapman Stadium.
True.
And the third and final $2 game. We got to come up with a good phrase for that. The $2 whatever.
A $2 chuck.
Well, a $2 chuck maybe.
Yeah.
Eastern Illinois. At Illinois.
Because there are a couple of other words that rhyme with chuck.
Yes.
You really can't use.
Yeah. We don't want
we could get the explicit rating early in the show.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, if the FCS team beats the FBS team, you might end up with the $2 word that rhymes with chuck, because of the paycheck that you're having to pay. So the Eastern Illinois Panthers on the B1G network. 9 o'clock, Illinois is at 28 and 45.5. I don't know if they get to the 45.5, and that means that Illinois has to do all the heavy lifting. So I'd go to Selah and Tulane, and that's about it. That's the $2 chucks for the week.
You don't want to take a trip to Champaign, Illinois?
Not so much. No,
it's lovely.
I'm not into champagne jams, and so that would be that'd be a no. It'd be a nix. It'd be a 9 for me. I am not going to Piscataway to see Howard and Ruggers for $5. Not going to go see North Carolina A&T and Wake for $7 at Allegacy Federal Credit Union Stadium in Winston-Salem. That's a mouthful. See, any stadium that takes entirely too long to say, I don't know if I want to go, catch a football on a budget. New Hampshire and UCF for $5. on campus. You got 2 for $11, so we're getting into double digits here with Maction, Fordham, Bowling Green, Central Connecticut, and Central Michigan. $12 to the Glass Bowl, Duquesne and Toledo. No word if you get the glass blowing class at the Glass Bowl.
Hey now.
Murray State and Missouri in Columbia for 15. North Carolina, Minnesota, still under $20. It's $18 to go see them on the campus, the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, and 2 coaches that really need to show something this year for their ADs to recommend them to stick around.
Really got to show something this year. We certainly do. Alcorn and UAB for $9 at Protective. I mean, you could really, if you're going, I hope Alcorn took the band. That would be the reason for me to go.
Well,
for
it's a 2.5 hour drive for us to get to Birmingham.
That's true.
Friday, you've got a $5 game, Wisconsin hosting Western Michigan.
Nope.
So if you don't want to go to a high school game, you can go watch the Badges.
Yeah, and if you want to jump around early in the season for $5, you could do that. Lehigh and Army's 12 at Mikey Stadium. Elon and Duke is 10 at Wallace Wade. TCU and Stanford still under $20. $18, and TCU's a 9-point favorite on the road.
I found another $2 word here.
You found another $2 pluck.
UConn at Maryland.
Nope.
That'd be a heck of a basketball game.
Absolutely, it would. Nope. Not happening. No.
For $4, we could go to the Steel City to watch Kent State and Pittsburgh.
No. And for $5, we could go see Indiana State and Purdue at Ross Aid.
Ooh.
Bucknell and Navy at Navy Marine Corps Memorial for $13. Just to go, if you get in the season early, you get to go see Navy and get to see the parade of the cadets. I think that'd be cool.
$8 get you into Cincinnati and Towson?
No. The Vicks of Portland State at Wazoo on the CW for $15 at Geisa Field in Pullman. The answer to that's a no.
Yeah, that was a college football X from 20 years ago.
Yeah, FIU and Indiana for 13 in Bloomington. No.
Kennesaw State, one of our home teams here. We're based in Atlanta.
Hootie hoo, baby.
Against Texas San Antonio.
I would
at the Alamo Dome for $8.
I would go to that because it's the first game for Kennesaw on the FCS level, and they're going to have a rough season in Conference USA. They get to play. By the way, Texas San Antonio gets to play all 4 Owls teams in the 2024 season.
Temple. Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
Kennesaw State.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
Rice.
Oh, Rice, of course. An old Southwest Conference team. What was I thinking?
3 in conference and Kennesaw State. So Texas San Antonio gets to play 4 Parliaments of Owls this season in college football. Let's see. Who else was under?
You don't get things like that in any other college football podcast.
No. Eastern Michigan and UMass for $14 in Amherst. No. Ohio State and Syracuse at the JMA Wireless. No, for $17.
Houston and UNLV. And Arkansas fans, you might want to look at Barry Odom because he might be the head coach at Arkansas if Sam Pittman moves on.
Yeah.
You got a couple minutes left here in the college football X. SMU and Houston Christian.
Yes.
Dallas, we got to get Brother Marty to be at that game.
Yes, absolutely. Well, $4 for UNLV in Houston. That's in Houston. But what's the get in for up to $5 now? Because it was $1 or $2 at one.
It was $2 on Sunday.
$2. I want my $2.
Inflation. Demand too. Washington and Weber State in Seattle at Husky Stadium for $4. That's one I would do.
Yeah, I mean, for $4, I could see that one. New Mexico and Arizona. New Mexico coming off of the loss to the MSU Bobcats, having to travel to Arizona. Arizona's a 31 and 58.5. I got to go with Arizona in that one. I think it might be a long day for New Mexico coming off of the game that they were in last week in the B block that we talked about on this week's show. But yeah. Alabama A&M and Auburn for $14 at Jordan-Hare Saturday night. Boss and I are going to that one, and I'm looking forward to the Alabama A&M band at halftime.
Awesome. Well, we've got to wrap things up as we up against it, but we enjoyed that you guys listened to the College Football X. We're going to continue this on and with more interviews and some little tidbits of the college football each week right here on the College Football X. So for Jon Nelson, I'm John Wilkerson. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the games this weekend.
Please like and subscribe.